Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, we dive deep, and we try to pull out the key insights so you don't get lost in the details.
That's the plan. Cut through the noise.
Exactly. And today, we're heading way back. Ancient Egypt. We're looking at Sneferu. He was the first pharaoh of the 4th dynasty.
A really pivotal figure.
Yeah, our mission here is to figure out his role, especially in pyramid building, how he kind of, kicked things off, and what his legacy really is. We've got a Wikipedia entry, and this other piece, Sneferu, architect of pyramids and pioneer of perfection.
Good sources. Lots to unpack there.
So the big question, I guess, is how did this one guy become the pyramid architect, pushing boundaries, trying things? What can we learn from his whole ambitious journey, especially the bits that went wrong?
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating because Sneferu wasn't just about success. He innovated, sure, but he also had these massive setbacks, public ones.
Right.
And instead of stopping, he learned. He iterated. That's maybe the key thing about him.
Yeah.
He refined his vision based on, failure.
Okay, so let's get specific. Who was Sneferu? First pharaoh, 4th dynasty, Old Kingdom. That's roughly 26th century BC.
That's right, the earlier part of the Old Kingdom. And his name is pretty significant, Sneferu. It comes from the Egyptian Arnembi Wind NFR Wij,
Okay.
which means something like, Horus, Lord of Mot, has perfected me. Mot being, truth, order, cosmic balance. So his name ties right into this idea of perfection.
Interesting. And the Greeks called him Saurus?
Yes, Saurus is the Hellenized version. But that perfected idea really sticks, especially when you look at what he tried to build.
Okay, but how long did he actually rule? Our sources seem, they disagree a lot. Oxford History says 24 years, Krauss says 30, Stadelman goes up to 48.
Yeah, it's a classic Egyptology puzzle. The Turin Canon list gives him 24 years.
Which sounds definite, but...
It's probably an underestimate. We actually have evidence, like inscriptions from the Red Pyramid, referring to his 24th cattle count.
Ah, so he ruled at least 24 years.
Exactly, minimum. And then there were other records from Medum, mentioning years after the 10th, 13th, and 18th counts. If you piece that together, it pushes the minimum reign up to 27 full years.
Okay, so 24 is definitely out.
Pretty much. Then you got the Palermo stone, another key fragment. It mentions the year after his 6th cattle count. Combine all these clues,
Yeah.
the known counts, you get a minimum of 28 years.
So probably over 30 years seems likely, given the scale of his building.
That seems the most reasonable conclusion, yes. Over 30 years makes sense for building 3 massive pyramids. The 48-year idea? Probably too long. The cattle counts weren't always strictly every 2 years back then, so 30-plus years feels right.
And ruling for that long, that says something about his power, his stability, right? To pursue these huge projects for decades.
Absolutely. It speaks volumes, sustained effort, massive resource mobilization. He wasn't just king, he was like the ultimate project manager for the entire state.
Wow. And who was he related to? He followed King Huni.
That's right, he succeeded Huni. There's this text, the Papyrus Price, that calls Sneferu raised up as a beneficent king, which fits nicely with his name, meaning to make beautiful or perfected.
Nice tie-in.
And his main wife, Hedefius I, she was important, mother of Khufu.
Khufu of Great Pyramid fame.
The very same. Sneferu also had, a whole court of powerful children. Ankaf, who became a vizier. Khanefer, another vizier. Nefermot, his first vizier. Rahotep, the high priest of Re.
So a real dynasty taking shape.
Definitely. Consolidating power, setting the stage.
Which brings us neatly to the building projects. This is the core of his legacy, isn't it? Paving the way for Khufu. 3 pyramids.
At least 3 major ones, yeah. And each one tells a story. His first really massive project was at Medum.
Right, the one that didn't quite work out.
Well, it evolved. There's some debate if Huni started it, but Sneferu definitely took it over and transformed it. It started as a step pyramid, maybe 7 steps like Josi's.
Okay.
Then they added an 8th step. And then they tried to encase the whole thing in smooth limestone to make it a true smooth-sided pyramid. That was the goal.
A huge leap in design.
Massive. And they did something else new. The burial chamber was built inside the pyramid's main body, near ground level, not tunneled deep underneath like earlier ones.
But it didn't hold up. The source calls it a partially ruined reminder.
Exactly. Something went wrong. Maybe the outer casing was too steep. Maybe the foundation wasn't stable enough for the added weight and stress. It likely suffered a major collapse, probably even during construction or shortly after.
Imagine seeing that, a colossal failure. So how does that failure fuel the next step? Most people would probably, rethink the whole true pyramid idea.
But not Sneferu. That's what's remarkable. It seems this failure was treated as, well, data, invaluable information for the next attempt. It must have been a huge blow, politically, religiously maybe, but he persisted.
So on to the next one.
On to the next one. The bent pyramid at Dashur. And it's called bent for a very obvious reason.
Yeah, you can see it clearly in pictures. It changes angle halfway up.
It does. It starts off steep, about 55 degrees, that abruptly changes to a much shallower angle, around 43 degrees, for the top section.
Why? Did they realize the Matum problem was happening again?
That's the leading theory, that maybe cracks started appearing, signs of structural stress, and they got worried about a potential collapse like at Item. So they made a mid-course correction, literally changed the angle to make it more stable.
Wow. Problem solving on a monumental scale, right there in stone.
Exactly. It's like a frozen moment of ancient engineering adaptation. And the inside is complex, too. It actually has two entrances, one north, one west, bigger chambers underneath using corbelled walls and ceilings, where the stones step inward layer by layer to create a kind of vault, more sophisticated than previous pyramids. And it had these complex diagonal portcullis systems, big stone blocking mechanisms. J.P. Lepre said the architects were clearly groping and experimenting.
Learning as they went.
Absolutely. There's even a smaller satellite pyramid nearby, maybe for Queen Head affairs, with its own unique features. And interestingly, they just opened the bent pyramid to tourists back in 2019, after being closed for decades.
So Matum failed. Bent. Well, it survived, but needed a big adjustment. Did he finally nail it? Did he get his perfect pyramid?
He did. Third time lucky, you could say.
Ah.
His final pyramid, also at Dashur, is the red pyramid.
Why red?
Because of the reddish hue of the limestone blocks used, especially noticeable at sunrise and sunset. And this one, this is it. The world's first successful, large-scale, true, smooth-sided pyramid.
So this is the breakthrough.
This is the one. It has a consistent, stable angle of about 43 degrees, the same angle they finished the bent pyramid with. They'd found the formula.
And the inside, still experimenting, or?
Interestingly, no. The internal structure is actually simpler than the bent pyramid. No tricky ascending passages like the satellite, no western entrance, no complex diagonal portcullises. It's like they learned what worked, what was stable, and streamlined the design.
Huh. So perfection was actually about simplification, in a way. Less complexity.
It seems so. They mastered the form. Now, about who's inside. Some human remains were found back in 1950. They fit the 4th dynasty mummification style, but we can't be sure they're Sneferu.
Still a mystery?
A bit. Lepre, the guy I mentioned, he thinks there might still be hidden chambers inside the Red Pyramid, maybe with Sneferu's actual burial.
Always more secrets in Egypt. Okay, so building these things. Matum, bent, red. The scale is just staggering. Where did he get the resources? The manpower?
Well, that's where Sneferu, the strategist, comes in. His foreign policy was absolutely key.
How so?
He needed two main things. Lots of labor and lots of raw materials. His military campaigns, especially into Libya and Nubia down south, seemed designed to get both.
So conquest for construction.
Pretty much. The Palermo stone actually records some of this. It talks about building huge ships, like 100-capacity ships made of myrwood, 60 royal boats. Then it mentions a raid in the land of the blacks, bringing back 7,000 prisoners, men and women, plus 20,000 cattle, sheep, and goats.
7,000 people. Just from one raid.
And another raid in Libya reportedly captured 11,000 prisoners and over 13,000 cattle. That's a massive influx of labor, likely forced labor for quarrying, hauling, building.
And materials.
The Palermo stone also mentions bringing in 40 ships of cedar wood. That almost certainly came from Lebanon. Essential for building ships, sledges, scaffolding. Plus, we know there was activity in the turquoise mines over in Sinai. He was securing resources from all directions.
It's a whole state-level operation geared towards these projects.
Exactly. And he even named one of his ships Praise of the Two Lands. It's the first time we know of a ship getting a specific name. It shows a level of, well, state pride and organization around these massive logistical efforts.
So he wasn't just an architect king. He was a resource master, a logistician, a military leader, all feeding this grand vision. What's the final takeaway, then, his ultimate legacy?
I think you have to see him as this incredible engine of innovation, a relentless problem solver, as one source put it. He didn't invent the pyramid, but he perfected the smooth-sided form.
He laid the groundwork for Khufu.
Directly. The Great Pyramid at Giza owes its existence to the lessons learned, failures endured, and successes achieved by Sneferu at Mitam and Dashur. He revolutionized how Egyptians built on a massive scale, how they organize labor. His reign really represents the peak of that kind of pharaonic power expressed through monuments.
It's interesting you say peak because pyramids did get smaller after his dynasty, right?
They did, significantly smaller later in the Old Kingdom. There might have been shifts in religious focus, maybe more towards the sun god Ra directly rather than pouring everything into the king's monument. Or perhaps the sheer resource drain was just unsustainable. But Sneferu set the benchmark.
It's an amazing story. Vision, persistence, learning from failure on a scale we can barely imagine. The king who wasn't afraid to fail spectacularly and then built something timeless.
He really did define the iconic image of ancient Egypt.
Absolutely. So, thinking about Sneferu's journey, the trial and error, the massive prototypes, the public failures leading to ultimate success, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other lessons about pushing boundaries, about daring to innovate, even when things go wrong, can we take from this pharaoh who learned to build perfection?